Angeles. Doing a bit of everything across the box score. Everybody pitching in. 111-105 is your final. James Harden, a hot first half, finished with 28. Kawhi, measured as always, and Powell pouring in 24 as the Clippers survive to see Game 7. Bill Ryder and John Gonzalez back to offer their thoughts on this one as well. Gentlemen, interesting game here, and I know game flow dictates the urgency at times, but it sort of felt like role reversal here. The team that was trying to close out oftentimes was the one playing a little bit anxious in moments. What did you make of the way that Denver managed this moment ultimately in a loss?
I mean, for me, I think it's just two incredible basketball teams. And John and I have been discussing this on the podcast and here on HQ. Both these teams, they're so evenly matched. And this was always destined to go 7. And I think you're just going to have, in these sort of series, games like this where the team that's facing elimination, the team that thinks that they can make a conference finals or go beyond, that's at home in John's favorite arena in America, by the way, because the Intuit Dome is an experience. It's hard to shoot for opposing fans. The wall's very effective. It was always going to be, I think, advantage Clippers to send it back to Denver and see what's going to happen. And it's just a reminder, it really is any given night when it comes to Clippers Denver and who's going to get just barely that edge. And as you noted, Joe, almost every single player was effective in this game. James Harden was so much more ambitious and aggressive, really important. Kawhi was good. Norman Powell was great. And Zubac, can we just give him a little love? I can't remember the last time I saw somebody deal with successfully Nikola Jokic multiple times in a crunch game. This was the Clippers team, right? They're the better team, the better players over on Denver. This was the Clippers team, everybody rising to the level together at once to try to keep their season alive.
John, I want your thoughts on L.A. here, but I also want to go where Bill's taking us there. Joker, especially on the defensive end, oftentimes felt like it was almost active load management, for lack of a better term here. What did you see from Denver and Nikola's recognition of it's going to have to be me at the offensive end, so at the defensive end you might not get the full force?
Yeah, I mean, he really took it upon himself to try to score a lot more than you generally would see. Normally, he's really facilitating, and you know he can score in bunches for sure. I mean, he's a triple-double machine. But yeah, I thought exactly what Bill said. Zubac did a fantastic job on him defensively. Now I'm looking at his line. He still went for 25, 7, and 8. That's kind of a quiet Joker night for anybody else. It's a ridiculous night. But yeah, I mean, this was of course this went 7, right? This was destined to go 7. This is a really good Clippers defense against a really good Nuggets offense, and tonight it was the Clippers getting the better of them defensively and really scoring a ton off of turnovers, 23 points off of turnovers. So the Nuggets made some mistakes and the Clippers capitalized. It got a little tight for the Clippers towards the end of the game, but I think that the Nuggets knew that it was going back to Denver, and now, you know, we're destined for that Game 7 that we look like we were steamrolling towards anyway.
We're going to get to Game 7 here in a moment. A final thought here on Game 6 and what was L.A. hopeful, not the last game in that building this season. Bill, as you take a look at what Denver takes away from this loss to bring back to their building, if the margin of error is so thin and the difference between these teams is so small, what is Denver's coaching point between now and Game 7?
I think it's no panic. Look, I think the advantage that Denver has on top of going home is we've been here before. We've done this before. We've won a championship. And I think and you said, what did you say, active load management? I think there was some of that. And also Nikola Jokic was trying to avoid, right? He was like, I think it's 3 or 4 fouls at a pretty early point. He was trying to avoid those fouls. But I think part of the reason there can be a little bit of a laid back might be the wrong word, but not an over sense of urgency and not pressing too much. Because I think the Nuggets understood and understand that they get to go home. It's a reset, and it's a lot harder to shoot for guys that aren't superstars on the road. Norman Powell's been 2 different guys at the Intuit Dome versus back in Denver. So I think for the Nuggets, it's we've got to have more effort and intensity defensively. We will. It'll be a closeout game. And we just need to do what we've done largely at home. We did a couple years ago when we won a championship, take care of business and understand that there's a real chance that some of those Clippers who were outstanding, because everybody was great for the Clippers tonight, some of those guys are not going to probably play as well in a Game 7 on the road.
Yeah, I don't want to call this an aha moment for L.A. It's a spectacular basketball team, as you guys have outlined here, but it did seem like all clicked at the right time on the right night to force this Game 7, John. How do you take that on the road and replicate all these things that are going to be harder while you are away from the comforts of home?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bill mentioned it, right? Norm Powell has been awesome when they play in the Intuit Dome and less than awesome when they've been on the road. We'll see what happens with that. Also, I want to see what happens with James Harden, right? I mean, James Harden, and they called this out on the broadcast, and I thought rightly so, and it's something that Bill and I have talked about at length on our podcast, is that late in playoff series, when games really matter, critical times, critical games, critical moments, James Harden has a tendency to disappear. In Game 5, that happened, where he just was basically a no-show when it was a critical game. Then Game 6, credit where it's due. James Harden was fantastic today. Now, he was better in the first half than in the second half, but still, full game, 28 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, a block. He had some threes. He was super efficient, 50% from the floor. That's a full James Harden effort. Let's see him do it again in Game 7. I crushed him in Game 5 because we've seen, Bill's pointing at me because Bill knows, but critical games with the Sixers, and then before that with the Rockets, he has a tendency to disappear. Kawhi Leonard, I have a lot more faith in him. I have faith in Zubac, who was just fantastic defensively and has a really good shot of making all defense for the Clippers this year. They're going to need James Harden on the road. He cannot do a no-show when they go to Denver for Game 7.
We've seen it in different cities, in different uniforms. Perhaps we don't see it this time, although maybe we do. Game 7 set for Saturday in Denver. See if James Harden's there. Appreciate it, guys. Here's a look at Clippers in Game 7s on the road throughout their franchise's history. It will be their first in a decade. They're looking for their first win since 2012 when they took down the Grizzlies, again in the first round in a Game 7.
Brunson, oh so clutch. So it's the Knicks and Celtics renewing their playoff rivalry, which it's been quite some time since they last met in the playoffs. It'll be their first playoff meeting since 2013. That was back in the day when Carmelo was balling out, and the Knicks won that series. Certainly the Celtics favored to win this one. They beat the Knicks in the regular season. In fact, they swept them, and the Knicks will have to figure something out to try and knock off the 2 seed in the East. Jalen Brunson could be the reason that they pull off the upset. An NBA high 27 points in clutch time this postseason, 261 points in 262 fourth quarter minutes in his Knicks playoff career. That right there is clutch. Instant analysis. Welcome to the co-host of Beyond the Arc, CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder and CBS Sports HQ NBA analyst John Gonzalez. And talking about Beyond the Arc, it was Jalen Brunson, Bill, the clutch player of the year, who was in the game to end the game in this game to win it. Your reaction's what?
My reaction is that guy is so good. And John and I spent a lot of the year talking about the end.
John, watching that, what did that make you feel? Because in the fourth quarter, it looked like the Knicks were about to lose that game. We were going to go up. Classic Knicks, classic meltdown. They're not going to be able to find a way, but they find a way.
Yeah, the Pistons looked like they had all the momentum and that it was going to be their game. They were going to force Game 7. And, Jalen Brunson was outstanding in this series. Aside from Game 5, in 5 of the 6 games, though, he was unbelievable. He was easily the best player in the series, easily the best player on the Knicks. And they needed every bit of his 40 points, especially that game-winning 3 that he hit, because as Bill mentioned, Karl-Anthony Towns only 3 points in the second half. Bridges came to play, OG came to play, but they have no bench to speak of. We can discuss what that means moving forward when they're going to play the Boston Celtics in the second round, and who are obviously a much deeper team. But Jalen Brunson is just so clutch, obviously, clutch player of the year. When they need him most, he always rises to the occasion. And if you're the Pistons, that's just a heartbreaking loss. You see him make a shot, and then you can't even get a shot off on your own floor to force Game 7. At least get one up, Pistons fans. But, man, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. Malik Beasley with the turnover, and he had an incredible game, 20 points off the bench, 6 of 13 from beyond the arc. And look, we were going to come on here, and we were going to talk also about Ausar Thompson's defense, Bill. I mean, we were going to bring that up, and we can certainly talk about it, but now it's all for naught as you see Jalen Brunson able to break through and the role players able to step up in this one. What does this win mean for the Knicks' confidence now going into this series against the Celtics?
It's almost as big as my confidence having dressed exactly the same as John Gonzalez, because he's got a lot more style than I do, and we've got this weird matching thing. This is, man, you wear it better, John. Look, it's sort of like, here's the good and the bad. The good is obviously you win the game, and we've discussed that Jalen Brunson was the man. And there are some players around him. I do think there's a little bit of a worry here, guys, if I can just be a little glass half full. Because, again, the standard for the Pistons was already met in terms of a successful season. Obviously, they want to win the game. The way that it ended, not getting a shot off, all of that is heartbreaking. Very successful season, a very bright future for the Pistons. The Knicks are expected to be championship contending teams. In fact, Hakeem, if I remember right, you've got them in the conference finals, so you think they can actually get there. They look tired to me. Karl Anthony Towns had a game earlier in this series that they lost where he didn't score any points in the second half. He only had 3, as John mentioned, in this second half. He had that bad turnover. He missed a critical free throw when the Pistons had taken that lead and the Knicks were trying to fight their way back. And so I think on the one hand, great, you win, you take it. It doesn't matter the style in which you do it, and you want to respect the Pistons. On the other, this level of play, the lack of scoring at time in this series, Cat vanishing for 2 second halves, which really means 2 games, and the wear and tear that I think you're starting to see in the Knicks, that isn't going to hold up, and that isn't going to work in the next round when you're playing the Boston Celtics. So, yes, congratulations, New York. You advance, you get to a reset, you get a few days, and then you go at it again in the second round. But New York has to be better. Jalen Brunson is amazing, but his teammates and that team and that coach, everybody on this Knicks team has to be better if they're going to have even remotely a similar performance or at least a similar outcome against Boston. They just had against a young, very spunky, but inexperienced Detroit Pistons team.
Well, the Knicks did not exceed expectations. They were supposed to be here. They're supposed to get to the next round. Detroit, not the huge expectations that everybody thought coming in. They won 14 games last season, John. They won 44 the regular season this year, a 30-win improvement, an incredible turnaround in J.B. Bickerstaff's first season. Of course, he was with the Cavaliers, so they know how to coach basketball there in Cleveland. When you talk about the Pistons, right, and what they accomplished this season, how would you describe what they did and what's next for them as they try to build on this successful year?
Fantastic season. I mean, as you mentioned, they won 14 games last year. Nobody had any expectations for the Detroit Pistons. Outside of Detroit, I don't think anybody even thought about the Pistons this season. Then all of a sudden, they triple their win total. First team in NBA history to do that. J.B. Bickerstaff, who was unceremoniously dismissed from Cleveland, goes to the Pistons, reignites that franchise. They're reborn. He's going to get some Coach of the Year consideration. Probably isn't going to win. It's going to go to almost certainly Kenny Atkinson, but still, he had a really great season. Cade Cunningham, his first All-Star appearance. He's also going to make All-NBA. It's been a fantastic season for the Pistons. And also, let's not forget, I mean, they were down double digits multiple times in this game and came roaring back. They never panicked. They didn't panic in this game. They didn't panic in this series. In Game 4, after the rest stole a game from them, frankly, or at least a chance to win that game, they didn't just pack it up and go home. They went to Game 5 in the Garden where all the hot lights and the pressure, and you're in MSG, and what? They win that game on the road to force Game 6. They go back to Detroit. Look, they still haven't won a playoff game at home since 2008. They've lost their last 10 playoff games, but they gave themselves a chance. It's a bummer the way that it ended. They didn't get a shot off, but still, this season is a rounding success for the Pistons. And next year, we're going to be talking about them as, hey, could they be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference and maybe have a home playoff series to start?
Bill, what about Giannis going to Detroit? Any chance?
I haven't heard anything along those lines, but look, I mean, I'm feeling the vibes. We can throw him in. We can throw him in the mid. My guess would be that if Giannis forces his way out, he's going to target a place like Houston or like San Antonio or maybe Orlando, a team that's a little bit further along. Although John is right, it depends sort of how you look at this team because the framework for excellence is clearly there. I might gently push back a little bit against my co-host, my colleague, my incredibly well-dressed friend, John Gonzalez. I think there was some panic from the Pistons, which is, look at this. I mean, John, you are, what is it? You're what this looks like on cable, and I'm what it looks like whatever the others, whatever just with the, without the cable. Look, I think there was a little, you saw this Pistons team go on this really great run, and then they let the Knicks close out. What was it, guys? A 9-1 run. You saw them unable to get a shot off. You saw them give up a 21-0 run earlier in the series when they really controlled the fourth quarter, one of the games John referenced that they could have won. Painful, brutal, heartbreaking. Those are part of the building blocks of excellence. And even though it doesn't feel that way now, Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren had a great game and a great series, right? The pain is going to be part of the lesson, and the heartbreak is going to be part of what builds a championship-level team. And so they're going to have to make some decisions at a free agency level. But John's right. They're going to be outstanding next year because they're going to take steps forward and because to get in the playoffs and to